This video was inspired by some questions asked by a brand new RC tanker whose screen name is spelled Alaa74, and I have no idea how to pronounce that. But he or she, I suppose, asked what were the forum's recommendations for a first hobby grade board, to do a first hobby grade tank. And so we're going to investigate that with these three tanks. They're all IMEX tanks. This is an IMEX Toro Yag Tiger, and we have two IMEX Taizhen full metal Tiger 1s. One is an early, one is a late. The late is an IR, the early is airsoft, and has the airsoft barrel recoil turret and the whole bunch of features. Two different machine guns. These two tanks both run on the ASP-1, and the Yag Tiger runs on the IBU2 base, but it does have the TPA amp added, as well as other features. So we'll see what we can discover about what's the best hobby grade board to go for first, but I really believe it's the IBU2 base. It's pretty much just completely plug and play. When you take it out of the box, especially if you get it set up by Ian with the matching radio, you'll take it out of the box, you'll install it in your tank, you'll switch the wires from the MFU to the IBU, you'll hook up the receiver, and you'll be driving down the road. The ASP is a great board and has a lot more features, but it's a lot more work. And there's a guy on the forum whose screen name is YHR, that's Dan, and he took time out from the Yellowhead Railway to advise the new guy that it's very important to have a good relationship with your vendor. The frustration factor in these things can be huge, and that's excellent advice for you. I think Ian Judge is a wonderful vendor. He provides excellent customer support. He's always only an email away, and even though the IBU2 base shouldn't give you any frustration, it's a pretty much completely plug and play board. If there is any problem at all, Ian stands behind his product 120%. So let's get on with it. Okay, this is my Yag Tiger, and it runs on the FlySky i10, which is a lot like the i6, just with a bunch more features. And this has the IBU2 base, okay? And this is what I recommend for a first attempt hobby grade board. Now this IBU2 base is a little bit different because it has this small board piggybacked on it, and that board is called a TPA, and that's an amp. Okay, so on this tank, again, I can run the three speakers. On this one, I'm running one stock Taizhen and two of the Aura 1-inch speakers, and it also runs on lipos. And even though I know the IBU has lipo protection, I still run the LVA, because why take a chance? But this board is really easy to hook up. You'll be down the road in like a half an hour, especially if you get it with the matching i6 radio and the receiver from Ian. That's just a, that's a great package he's got there. But I wanted the extra features because I run the Viper units for volume control, and this tank does have servo-operated machine gun. And also, I've been thinking that it would be really nice if I could make Carl's head turn back and forth. The bow machine gun is servo operated and it'll swing back and forth. And if we can get Carl going, or maybe a TC up in the hatch on the top. But the servo operated machine gun on this radio runs on that little slide switch right there in the upper left hand corner. You can flick that back and forth with your finger, and it's got another one on the other side that could do the same thing for Carl's head. Oh, now I'm wondering if I could make that machine gun move around. Then I'd have to get a better one. But anyway, that's the IBU2 base, and I think it's a great board, and I really recommend it for first hobby grade, because the frustration level is a lot lower with a board like this. There's no rewiring whatsoever. Without the TPA, you just swap your plugs from the stock MFU to the IBU. You'll have power, you'll have your two motors, you'll have your 8-pin plug. This is for airsoft now. I don't know if you got airsoft or IR tanks, but this one is airsoft. So this is just a, it's a terrific board, and Ian gives really good support. And like Dan said, that is essential. You got to have a good relationship with your vendor, And Ian's on top of this stuff. He really knows the game. He's an avid tanker, and I can't say enough good stuff about him. And by the way, all of these tanks are IMEX tanks that I got from Eric Edwards at IMEX in Florida. Another great guy. And you can tell him I sent you. And I know for sure he gives a discount to RCU members, so definitely tell him you're on the forum. Okay, I have yet to try the Asp2. This is an Asp1, and there was a lot of rewiring for this. I rewired elevation, turret. I took advantage of the turret machine gun and wired that up, and you'll see that more when I run it. I really like that. It's got two separate machine guns on two separate switches on the 9XR. It comes with the Juno board. I think the Asp2 is more plug and play. I really like that Juno board. That's a great soundboard. I'm pretty sure it's got a 20-watt amp. It's got plugs for 3 speakers, so I'm using 2 Mado speakers and 1 Taijin. It obviously runs on the FreeSky receiver because this has model matching. It's also, I don't think you can see it from here, but we'll give it a shot. That tank right there, there's the radio itself, the 9XR, and that's my Tiger 1 late. That's the other tank that's got an ASP and is model matched, and you'll see that in a second. But I understand the ASP2 is a lot easier to install, and this was one of Kevin's first ASP boards, and I love it. I can't say enough good stuff about it. It's got features that are just unbelievable, and I'll show you a bunch of them in a minute. And Kevin also set up the radio, the 9XR Pro, and he added another 3-position switch, and when I got it, it was all ready to go, matched with the ASP, and all I pretty much had to do was rewire the different stuff and put it in, and I was there. And it's got 1 available channel left. The ASP uses 7 channels, and there's still 1 channel on the radio. If I can get Kevin to teach me how to assign that to the 3rd pot, I think I'm going to use it to make the bow machine gun servo operated, like the machine gun in my Jagd Tiger. So I'm going to fire these up. Okay, this is also an Asp1, but in a different tank. This is in my Tiger 1 late, and this tank is IR. So for this, it was a more straightforward wiring because I don't have the additional machine gun in the turret because that's where the IR emitter is, and so it was, it was much more straightforward. I just rewired the elevation and the turret and plugged those in. Again, it's got the great Juno board, and I got the same speaker configuration in here with 1 stock Taijin and 2 Mados. And I just purchased a second receiver to hook it up. The FreeSky module is what Kevin put in the 9XR for me, and that's why I've got model matching. And so it needs a different receiver, which is a little more expensive. But the radio that he sent me, I mean, I had no problem paying the extra shipping for Australia. It was like $40 shipping for the radio and the board. When I got the first board, and then the second board was pretty reasonable. It was only like $15 shipping for the second ASP. But this radio is just incredible. You'll see it when I fire these 2 tanks up in the living room here in a minute. And Kevin had it completely set up. I'm not entirely positive that he's still doing that. He added another 3-position switch, and every switch on it was programmed when I got it. This is my engine start, and it also turns my headlights on and off. This one turns my smoker on and off. This is a cannon fire switch, as is this one, but because this is IR, this switch gives you 5 rounds of Tamiya 2-shot kill code. It's got the same 2 machine gun switches, but I only have 1 machine gun in this one. Still got 2 different machine gun sounds though, and of course it's got all the noise, or the music, and the voice commands, and the incoming rounds and the engine rev, and all of that is controlled over here. Engine rev and incoming is on this switch, and it uses 2 of the 3 pots, and the 3rd pot I'd like to use for either servo operated machine gun or possibly to make the tank commander turn his head. But since this is an IR tank, this one will probably be machine gun. The other tank's airsoft, and that creates its own problems with loading the BBs. But anyway, I'm going to go fire them up. And one more thing that you'll notice that you'll get into later, I mean, like I said, for your first tank, your hobby grade, for your first hobby grade board, the IBU2 is the one that I would go with. But then you're going to want to get better. And the ASP is really, really killer. And it runs on lipos, you'll see that. And the green lights, if they're showing up, even though the IBU has lipo protection, I'm not sure if the ASP does, but I don't care. I always run an LVA, low voltage alarm. Why take a chance? It's like $2 for one of these things. I must have a dozen of them. And like I said, why take a chance, right? Okay, we're going to start with the Jagdtiger, and that runs on the FlySky i10. And if you watch closely, this slide switch, if you watch the bow machine gun, it's servo operated. Goes back and forth. Okay, on the IBU2 base, most of your operations are stick controlled. I'm trying to position this so you can see. If you pull the stick right and down and hold it, turns on the headlight. Most of these stick controls on the IBU take 4 to 5 seconds to initiate, and that's mainly so that you don't like accidentally turn your tank off. So up and right starts the tank. Down and left will start the smoke unit operating. Like I said, you have to hold it for 4 to 5 seconds. Accidental cannon fire. This tank runs really well, it's really smooth. And the engine sounds and the track creak and all that. Something that I very rarely use that is a good feature that can get you out of tight spaces is the super spin. And on this tank, it's with the IBU2 base, it's very smooth and works very well. Turns it right around. And that's full throttle. So that's the IBU2 base, which will run on a 6-channel radio or a 4-channel radio. For me, I need the extra channels for things like the servo-operated machine gun and the volume control. Now I also have, right over here, now that's a TGY i6, which is basically the same as the FlySky i6, and it runs that Jagdpanther. And you need to ask Ian about the different FlySky radios that he has. For an IBU2 base, he'll probably recommend that you go with just the standard FlySky 6-channel. It's a little bit cheaper, and it does have a few less features, but it's still a great radio. It's that's very similar to the actually the Hobby King T6 is a copy of the FlySky 6-channel. So that's the IBU2 base, and that's the board that I recommend for your first hobby grade board. It's super easy to install and use. If you do want to change something on it, it has a micro SD card that's very easy to use. Ian sells the adapter for the micro SD card, I think for £1, which is, you know, a couple bucks. So I'm going to turn this one off and show you the ASP. Now I've got other videos on this with the model matching feature. Right, we're set for the S33, so we'll start with that. But this tank is my flagship tank. This is my my favorite. It started out as all plastic, and now it's all metal, and it's got some features on it that I really like. Now, one of the things I like about the ASP and the 9XR Pro that Kevin set up is that just a minute. It has everything is pretty much controlled by switches. There's no stick movement controls. So for engine on, the ASP provides 4 different engine ons with these 2 switches when you first turn on the tank. And this one is my favorite. To me, it sounds like it's a cold winter morning and she just doesn't want to start. Everything on this is switch operated now, so when I turn the headlights on and off, it's by the switch. Off. Back on. This tank drives really well. It's got a great motor controller in it. It's very, very smooth. One of the special features on this tank that I really like is the 2 different machine guns. And they are on 2 different switches. See if I can get this so you can see it. This is one of the machine guns. And then this one is the turret machine gun. And I really like that. But I'm easily amused. The ASP also has other sound features like music. 4 separate tracks randomly selected by the ASP. By flicking the switch a second time, you can turn it off. It's got incoming sound. I like that one with the machine gun bullets. It's got 4 different tracks randomly selected. Has engine rev sound. And if you use that switch while you're moving, it'll give voice sounds. Again, 4 separate tracks randomly selected by the ASP, and you can also turn one of the pots over to the other side, and you have 4 user-supplied sound tracks that I haven't messed with yet, but I will eventually. Take this one for a little ride down the hallway. It's got that 20-watt amp in there. It sounds really good. It's a very, very smooth tank. It responds to controls really, really well. It's a little dicey on super spin, but I found that with Kevin's boards, sometimes the things that he doesn't like don't get as much attention, and he doesn't like super spin, so it's not a priority for him, which is cool. It'll still do it if you know how, though. We'll give you a little full speed action. Full throttle. I've timed this, and that's about right for a Tiger 1. I really like the engine sound. It's very, very good. Now with this radio, I bought my second ASP and another Free Sky receiver to go with the 9XR Pro. And so now I'm going to shut down the S33. And I'm going to change over to the Tiger 1 Late. And that's all it takes. So now that that's changed over, I'm going to turn this tank on. Now you notice that the other tank is, I haven't touched. It'll sit there waiting for me to tell it what to do, for me to switch back to it. This is the IR tank. Sounds a little bit different when it starts. And before it'll start, you have to wait for that voice. And then it also has 4 separate soundtracks. Let's try a different one. First start. Also Tiger 1 sounds. These 2 tanks have the same sound set because they're both Tiger 1s. On the ASP, both turret rotation and barrel elevation are completely proportional. You can make it move fast or slow as you choose. Now on this particular IR tank, my high intensity flash is out. It's not working. That's something I have to replace. But it does have barrel recoil, as does the S33, even though that's airsoft and I didn't demonstrate it. I'll show you in a minute. This has a special feature for IR battling. It has two different switches for the cannon. You can fire the cannon with this switch, which is a momentary switch, very easy to use. Or after a 9-second delay, because it's a heavy tank, you can fire the cannon with this switch on and off. Oh, the flash worked that time. And that is the special Tamiya 2-shot kill code. It will kill any Tamiya tank with just 2 hits instead of the 9 that it usually takes to kill a heavy tank. This also has, sorry about that, also has volume control from the transmitter. And drives just exactly the same way as the S33 does. Now that little glitch that you just heard is something new, the way the sound cuts out, and I have to get with Kevin to find out what that is. And that's just another reason that I recommend the IBU2 as a first board, because it is so easy and it's been thoroughly tested. This is an ASP1. That's the S33 telling me that I haven't moved it for however many seconds. Now, the way that sound cuts out momentarily like that is something I'll have to investigate. That's annoying. Kevin's going to be getting an email. Hey buddy, what's going on with this? How do I fix this? But Kevin's really great about this stuff. And I'll tell you what, he knows more about IR tech than anybody else I've ever met. So I'm going to shut this down and go back to the S33 so that it'll shut up. Alright, let me switch back over to the S33. Start that back up. Now once the tank has been started the first time, you only have the warm start option. You have to turn the tank on, off and then on again in order to get the 4 different engine start sounds. But this tank is airsoft and it does have barrel recoil. It's not loaded right now. Again. Now one thing I do like about the ASP and the IBU3 is that they use the trigger switch to activate the cannon sound. That's not the case with the IBU2 base, so the airsoft timing can be a little dodgy. But you know, I've learned to live with it and it's not a problem for me. So my new friend, once you get your feet wet and get used to hobby grade boards and what they are and can do and how you like them, the ASP is definitely a great board to have. You saw me just run both those tanks off the same transmitter and flip back and forth at will. You can do that, you know, all day long and it's really great. But the IBU2 base for your first board is definitely what I recommend. Definitely get a hold of Ian Judge and ask him to set you up. Tell him I sent you. Tell him Gary in Detroit sent you. So I hope that was informative for you and helped a little bit, and also that it was helpful to anybody else that might have watched it. And that's the first video in the new house. And totally off topic, that's a new purchase right there too, the little kitty tent. I've been thinking about how can I make that OD green. Now this is another tank that runs on the IBU2 base. It's my little Stug. And it runs on this radio. This is just a Hobby King T6. I paid 25 bucks for this. It's a 6-channel, got 2 pots, got 2 switches. I had to buy the cable to program it with the PC, but that's not hard to do. And it's a really dependable little radio for a really, really cheap price. This tank does not have the TPA amp yet. It does not have turret rotation, obviously, since it's a turretless tank. Has one of the most powerful airsoft cannons that I have, though. Did some special things with that light and crystal clear and a warm white 3mm LED. This tank has got brass gearboxes in it with 360 motors, and I think it's a bit slow. I think I'm going to add the 380s and try that. Great tank, though. I love this one. Here you can hear the great sound on the IBU. And that's top speed, unfortunately. It's a little bit slow. Again, the IBU2 base, if you find yourself in a tight space, it has a really excellent super spin that with those 360 motors, you can see it's kind of slow. But it does the job, gets the tank turned around. Great airsoft cannon. Why they put that LED in the driver's port, I have no idea. But someday I'll use fiber optics and run it up to the MG34 at the top. Now when I bought this tank and put in the IBU2, like I said, within a half an hour I was driving the tank. It took me way longer to paint it than it did to hook up that IBU. And again, on this tank I have a Viper unit in there for volume control from the transmitter. And that's what I recommend as a first hobby grade board. The IBU2 base with either the standard 6-channel radio or the i6 or whatever. But Ian Judge will take really, really good care of you on IBUs. And I guarantee you will not be sorry that you bought one. It's a great board, and I'm sure you'll love it. So there you have it, and I hope that was helpful. See you next time.